Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today, oh boy, we got a juicy rumor out of Nashville as the Nashville Predators general manager David Poile. You know, this guy is always known for making some kind of interesting moves around the deadline and during the summer, and there might be some more pretty big seismic moves on the way here for the Nashville Predators here in 2023. So we're going to go over the latest rumors out of Nashville in today's video. If you guys have not already, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. Let's take a look at the Predators. So, starting off with Frank Saravelli. And he said that the Predators are ready to make Mattias Ekholm available for trade. Kind of interesting there. This is one of the core defensemen there in Nashville, right? They already let Ryan Ellis go. Mattias Ekholm was one of those guys. PK Subban. He's kind of the last of that core, right? Alongside Roman Josi, left in Nashville from what was that world-renowned defense from really 2015 up until PK left in 2018, right? Or 2017, 18 when he left for New Jersey. So that's the first one. And the other one, also from Saravelli, he said, Saravelli wonders if the Predators could opt to make Ryan Mcdonagh available for this year's trade deadline. So, what do I think of this? So, first off, I totally get why the Predators would be doing this. I mean, listen, let's be honest here. I mean, the Nashville Predators, it's not impossible for them to make the playoffs. It's just not very likely. This is a team that has not proven themselves to be a team that can go and win a playoff round. We kind of saw that last year. You know, did it have to be against the eventual Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche? But at the end of the day, whether you get past the first round or get to the Stanley Cup final, I mean, what does it matter if you can't beat the top team, right? So it's one of those things that I think Nashville has to accept at some point, the rebuild. Oh, I've said the word, rebuild. But that's really what it is. Nashville has to get to a point where they accept that they are not the team that they were when they went to the Stanley Cup finals in 2016 against the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's not this Nashville team anymore. They're just not there. And, you know, what's, I think, really frustrating for the Predators and their fan base is this is a team that, you know, David Poile and that staff, they draft a lot of really good defensemen. They're kind of the defenseman factory, right? And, you know, you look at teams around the league, yeah, you know, Anaheim's known for being a very good goalie factory, and Nashville is known for being a very good defenseman factory for just farming out good defensemen. I mean, you look at the last couple of years, some of the guys that have come through there, you know, Seth Jones, obviously the guys they have right now in Josi, Ekholm, Ellis, you know, some of those guys are playing elsewhere, but they still have that tie to Nashville. Most recently, some guys like Alexander Carrier, who was one of the one of the nicest stories in the NHL, a guy that was playing his way through Milwaukee in those ugly teal Admiral jerseys in the AHL, and now finally getting shot in the NHL and really being a difference maker for the Predators and really becoming one of the core four defensemen in Nashville. And now obviously we're starting to see hopefully some signs of the emergence of a Dante Fabro and things like that. So, you know, the Predators may be ready to move on from some defensemen. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, why are they available? So, I mean, the Mattias Ekholm one is pretty self-explanatory. He's got 4 years left on his contract with this season. His deal ends in 2026. Same thing for Ryan Mcdonagh. And between the two of them, it's almost $13 million of cap space per season investment in those two players. And considering they aren't playing that well, it's like, all right, maybe we have to decide it's best we trade them while their value is still at least somewhat there. And considering what they got for Ryan Ellis from the Flyers, there is value out there. Yeah, not everybody is Chuck Fletcher and throwing around the assets that they did, but it's something that can be done. And obviously the appeal to Mcdonagh is obviously there. He won a couple cups with Tampa, a huge part of that defense, and is a guy that teams will be interested in. And same thing for Mattias Ekholm. So when you break them down individually, we're going to start off with Ekholm. Mattias Ekholm, like I said, was one of the if there was a they took the Smoky Mountains in Nashville, in Tennessee, and built faces of the Nashville Predators, the founding fathers of the defense in Nashville. It would be Roman Josi, Ryan Ellis, maybe PK Subban, and Mattias Ekholm. No question, right? So this is one of those guys that it would be tough for the fan base to lose this guy on their team. He means a lot to this fan base. But Mattias Ekholm is 32 years old, making $6.25 million on the cap hit, and like I mentioned, his contract takes him until 2026. So 4 more playoff runs out of this guy. He's an alternate captain there. He is a switch hitter, and not that sense. Maybe. We don't know. But he's a left shot and right shot defenseman, which is a very nice utility. A lot of teams look for a guy that can play both the left and right shot. A lot of teams look for the right shot defenseman. That's a very in-demand position in the NHL. There aren't a ton of right shot defensemen, so the fact that he can play both is very much an asset. It's the equivalent of a right shot defenseman because he can play both sides. He is a little bit on the older side at 32 years old, but he has a lot of experience under his belt in Nashville. This is a guy that has been a journeyman, not in the sense that he has really played all over the place in the NHL, but he's got a long career to his name. He's a guy that can instantly come in and really create a culture for a franchise, and a guy that teams are going to very much look at despite this salary. And considering the salary, it is still not that atrocious, and I think that's why teams will look at it. He's played his next NHL game will be his 700th game in the National Hockey League, so obviously shout out to him. Over 250 points in the NHL. There's a guy that plays and is a gamer, right? There's a guy that is, he's been healthy for the most part, and is that means a lot to teams. A guy that's consistently in the lineup and doesn't need to be out with injuries all the time. That is a core value to a lot of teams, and Ekholm is one of those guys. So what's the price? Well, the price, I hate to break it to you, it's not going to be cheap. If you're a team out there looking for Mattias Ekholm, Predators fans aren't going to be too upset, but it will be expensive. Now, I think that you can get some combination of a first and a second or third round pick and another asset. And I think the reason is, A, the availability. He's not a rental. B, the contract itself, it depends on who you ask, but I think a lot of people would say it's a valued contract. You've got him till he's 36, 37 years old, and then you pull the plug, and that's probably it. And, there's a guy, like I said, he stays healthy. So this is a guy that, knock on wood, should be playing well into his late to mid-30s and being quite productive at that point. So a lot of teams, I think, will be interested here. I think the Edmonton Oilers, and that's actually what we've heard recently, is the Edmonton Oilers have actually been linked to Mattias Ekholm. So that's kind of the predecessor for this video, and that was from Frank Saravelli. He said that Mattias Ekholm has been connected to the Edmonton Oilers. And again, no real shock there that number 14 in Nashville would be tied to the Oilers. The Oilers are looking to add some defensemen. Another team that I think could be in as a little bit of a dark horse, depending on what happens with Chychrun, I think the Los Angeles Kings would be a really fine fit there for Mattias Ekholm. And I think that's a team that has a lot of really nice assets that the Predators might be like, ooh, they got some gems over there that we would like. Whether that's prospects or potentially draft picks, I think that Nashville, they could get what they want from LA. And don't forget, they've made some deals here recently with the Devil there in Tinseltown. They made that deal last year with Victor Arvidsson, sending Victor Arvidsson to the LA Kings. So Poyle and the staff there in LA do have a little bit of recent history. So there is reason to believe that something could be done there as well. Another team that I think is the real dark horse of this group, but I think it's interesting, the Buffalo Sabres. Yeah, the Buffalo Sabres seem like a long shot here, but are they really? The Buffalo Sabres are a team that wants to maybe make the playoffs. They're leading the NHL in goals for this season. They're scoring goals at a very nice pace, but I think they'd like to see more structure around that blue line, around some of the younger guys like, I almost said Jake Sanderson. an Owen Power and some of the younger guys like a Jacob Bryson. You want to see a guy like Ekholm come in there and add that veteran presence for an Owen Power on the blue line. And I think that Ekholm could be a great mentor for that group. And obviously he's got that experience. He's gone to the finals. He has a lot of playoff experience, over 700 games in the NHL. This is a guy that can be a really good culture-shifting addition to the Buffalo Sabres. Maybe not even at the deadline, but maybe even this summer. And we've heard, recent rumors at the end of in August last year that the Sabres were kind of fishing and looking to make a big acquisition on the blue line. And maybe Ekholm could be that guy. Who would have thought, right? And they've also got the cap space. I think Nashville, if they're looking to move the salary, if that's a key factor, Buffalo could take pretty much most of that salary, if not all of it, without any retention and say, yeah, we'll take Ekholm off your hands. Thank you very much. So that's what we've got on Ekholm. And I think that the Predators could get a pretty nice haul for him. But don't forget Ryan McDonagh. Ryan McDonagh, 33 years old. He has a no-trade clause, left shot defenseman. And same thing, 2026 will be the end of his deal. And he's making a little more at $6.75 million per season. What's interesting about McDonagh as well is obviously just the aura around McDonagh. McDonagh's a guy that a lot of teams are going to look at here. And we've heard a lot of rumors last time around when Tampa kind of flipped him out. And, that was kind of shocking at the time that they traded McDonagh. But listen, that's part of the salary cap era. That was a big deal at the time. And, there's a guy that's well respected in the National Hockey League. Excuse me. Well respected in the National Hockey League. And a guy that a lot of teams are going to look at. Now, what's interesting about his situation his base salary is actually quite low this year, but the problem is next year it goes all the way to $8.4 million, goes down to $6.93, and the final year is the easiest to trade him. He's got a modified no trade clause, and his actual base salary is $4.2 million in 2025-26 season. And January 16th of 2026, he submits a list of 12 teams he would not accept a trade to. So it is very selective on where he could get traded. And in the moment here, I'm actually going to change the 3 teams I think he could go to. That's how difficult I think it's going to be to move him. So the first team is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've been tied to McDonagh in the past. Obviously, he's a defenseman that has a great pedigree. Speaking of pedigree, Stanley Cup championship pedigree, winning a Stanley Cup, a couple of Stanley Cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning, being an alternate captain in Tampa. That obviously means a lot. He was the captain of the New York Rangers before he ultimately got traded down to Tampa, and was a key piece for the Rangers on their runs with Henrik Lundqvist in the mid-2010s. So he has that pedigree and experience, and something that the Leafs, I think, would consider a cultural a difference maker on the blue line, right? And a guy that obviously would be taking some of the load off of the Logegrins and the Sandins and the Justin Halls of the world on that group. And I think that's a guy that you want to talk about. You want to take that next step and win a Stanley Cup. If Toronto's really all about it and really all in, Kyle Dubas should be doing his diligence here and making sure he's talking to Nashville about Ryan McDonagh. I think that is a perfect fit. Guy that can jump on the penalty kill, number 1 penalty kill defenseman. He's your shutdown D-man. Yeah, TJ Brody and Giordano are good, but McDonagh is a to the nth degree better than both of those guys. No discredit to those guys, but it's just a credit to how good McDonagh is. The New Jersey Devils. I think it depends on where the Devils are at, closer to the deadline. But a lot of this has to do with geographically. He played for the Rangers for a long time. He's not a stranger to the New York metropolitan area, so New Jersey would be a fit here. The Devils are looking to add some blue line help. They've got some cap space, and they're a team that I think would love to add McDonagh. I think they were one of the teams heavily in on the chase for him last time around. McDonagh, again, same thing as the Leafs. They have a little bit of a better core defensively with Hamilton and some of those guys like Graves. But McDonagh is your number one shutdown D-man and instantly gives the Devils some credibility on the blue line as a good, bridge defenseman, as the Luke Hugheses and the Simon Nemec's of the world start to develop and turn into pros at the NHL level. Ryan McDonagh can get the Devils over that hump and back to the playoffs. I think he adds... Jesus, I'm spitting all over the place. This is a guy that instantly adds credibility to that blue line. And I think something that, honestly, the Devils have the assets, honestly, to get something done there. And the third team I'm looking at has a little bit to do with his hometown, and that's the Minnesota Wild. And the Minnesota Wild are a good fit for McDonagh for a couple of reasons. They've got the first and second round picks and this and that. They've got the prospects too that I think Nashville would be interested in. The only problem with Minnesota is, that's a Central Division opponent for Nashville. And if Nashville's kind of in it and not in it, they don't want to trade to a team like Minnesota, who they could potentially be playing in the first round of the playoffs. Now, again, unless the package is really good, they could make that deal work, but I think that there's going to be a little hesitancy for Poile trading in the division, especially a magnitude player like McDonagh. But he is from St. Paul, Minnesota, which is, he's probably within 10 or 15 minutes of the Predator from the Wild. So that's a factor. And again, when you consider the no trade clause being attached, that you have to consider places he's either willing to move for to win a Stanley Cup and is the final piece, like Toronto. New Jersey, he's got the familiarity with the New York metro area and sees the young guys like Hughes and Hischier. And, he was willing to waive his no trade clause to go to Nashville. I would say New Jersey right now is in a better position than Nashville. And, again, you look at the Minnesota Wild, the team that he's probably grown up within walking distance from. The Minnesota Wild absolutely have to be on the table there. And with the fact they're top of their division, they're in the Central, and, the hometown kind of situation, I think that'll be a great spot for McDonagh to potentially land and potentially consider the end of his career and retire a member of the Minnesota Wild. So let me know what you guys think down below. I think the price tag for McDonagh is kind of similar to Ekholm. It's going to be expensive for these guys, and that's why I think that, if Poile is kind of just dabbling into where the value is, right? Kind of like Chychrun. Like, let's see where his value is, evaluate what teams are really interested in, and once we get to the summer, there's no rush to trade them at the deadline. Let's see what happens in the summer, and maybe it ends up becoming a draft day move where McDonagh and Ekholm, the Predators are rebuilding the blue line and trying to add some scoring to their offense, and it does come at the cost of the defense, but again, when you've got guys like Carrier and Fabro in there, it makes it a little easier to let some of those bigger contract guys like Ekholm and McDonagh go in order to fix your scoring issues. And I think that's something that, honestly, David Poile has not been afraid to do in the past and probably not afraid to do again this coming summer. Guys, let me leave some mock trades down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you again next time. Go Preds.